Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'm going to be talking about the Sirui Anamorphic lenses. Now I previously made a video on the 35mm because that was the first one I bought, and I got that quite a while ago now. And since then I've got the 24mm and the 50mm, and I've been using them quite a lot over the past couple of months. I've used them on a bunch of projects. I just want to talk about like the pros and the cons of these lenses. I'm a big fan of these lenses, and I'm a big fan of these lenses for a number of reasons that I'm going to go into. They're probably not for everyone and not for every camera, of course, but the results that I've been getting, I've really been loving, and I'm going to show you some of those results. And yeah, let's talk about these lenses. So first, let's talk about the pros. They're really good value for money. I mean, it was only a few years ago that if you wanted anamorphic lenses, they would have cost a fortune, and there were so few lenses available, and it feels like recently there's just been this influx of anamorphic lenses and budget anamorphic lenses with different mounts. It's great. I'm loving all the variations that you've got and all the options now, and these are really good. If you're looking to get into anamorphic and use anamorphic lenses a bit more, and you've got a camera that you can use with one of these mounts, then I would highly recommend it, because I am loving the results I get. I think they're probably roughly around £500 each. Now that does vary. I think the 50mm is 400, and maybe the 75 and the 24 are the more expensive variations. I think the 24 was the most expensive one I bought, and that was about 520, 530. Most of these lenses have discount codes on Amazon, so there'll be a set price, and then you can tick a little box and it'll give you like 10% off. So yeah, you could probably get a full set of these lenses, 24, 35, 50 and 75, for under probably £2,000, which is pretty good for a lens set. A full set of anamorphics for under £2,000. If you look at some options that are available, and yeah, maybe they are full frame, but they're going to set you back about £1,500 each. So £2,000 for a full set of anamorphic lenses is a great deal. So the next thing I want to talk about is size, the size of these lenses. I tested some anamorphic lenses, I think about 7 years ago maybe, and I was always really astonished by how big some of them were. I mean, the Arri Master Prime anamorphics are huge. They're literally bigger than the Komodo. The really great thing about these lenses is they're really small. You could easily put these on your camera. You could run it on a gimbal still. You know, they're not really going to increase the weight by a huge amount. These lenses probably weigh similar to what prime lenses would weigh. So yeah, really small. The 24 is the biggest one that I've got. It's just a bit longer, but I still, you know, I wouldn't be worried about running this on a gimbal on the Komodo. I think the RS3 Pro would handle that no problem. Yeah, just for some context, this is the 18 to 35 Sigma, and this is the Sirui 24mm, so, you know, very similar size and weight for both of these lenses, and I'm usually running this one on a gimbal. So now the image as well. I want to talk about the image, and that's maybe not going to be to everyone's taste. I think sometimes you see an image and you either like how it's kind of affecting the contrast and stuff, or you don't. I personally love the image that I get out of these lenses. I'm shooting on the Komodo. The amount of times that I have just put these lenses on, turned on the camera, framed up, I've not even started lighting, and people are going, oh wow, that looks like a movie. And I mean, that's obviously the thing you want to hear on a set. Usually I would prefer it after I'd lit the scene, but it's nice to hear. You know, you put a lens on, turn the camera on, and people are they're loving the image that's coming out of it. I feel really confident if I took this on set and I had it with clients, you know, they would love what it was doing. And anamorphic's not for every project, of course. I've been lucky this past few months that I've been able to use anamorphic, and it's been right for the projects that I've been using it on. Yeah, I love the image. And I think this as well, you know, it's going to depend on your camera. Feels like these lenses were literally made to go on the Komodo. I know you can get E-mount. Obviously these aren't full frame, but I know that you can just crop it. It'll crop it for you, I think, automatically on the Sonys. So it would be really nice to see what some of the footage looks like on the Sony. But for the Komodo and my use and how I've been using them, it feels like these lenses are just the most ideal anamorphic lens for the Komodo. And I'm really enjoying the combination of the lens and the camera together. They just seem to be made for each other. I'll say one thing maybe about the colour on the Komodo, and I don't know whether it could be the lenses enhancing this, but I get a little bit more green than red. You know, sometimes I'm dialing in maybe a -7 when I'm looking at the raw footage of the Komodo, and that's kind of balancing it out. I know the Komodo, I think, leans towards the greens a little bit more, and you could just easily tweak that in the LUT as well. You could just change that and leave it on. The stretch factor of these lenses is 133. You know, that's perfect for the Komodo. The Komodo does 1.3, So usually when I bring the footage into Premiere, you just right click, modify, and change the aspect to 133. But I'd say for monitoring, 1.3 to 133, you can perfectly monitor. No one has even picked up on the fact that it's slightly different aspect ratio. So on set, framing up and stuff, 1.3 works perfectly on the Komodo, and then just doing that slight little de-squeeze in Adobe afterwards. And you can get different de-squeeze factors as well. When I had the Great Joy on the Pocket 6K, that was a 1.8 de-squeeze. For me, it feels like the Komodo gives you options, and I know with cameras, they don't always give you every option. The Pocket gave you 2, I think, and 133 as an option. Now you can use monitors like the Ninja and other monitors to give you those extra de-squeeze factors, but what I really like is that the Komodo with these lenses will de-squeeze when I bring the footage into the edit. So it's already de-squeezed when I'm viewing it back in Red Cine if I'm just looking at it on set and stuff. So that's a really nice little bonus and I know the Alexa obviously does the same if you're shooting. In the past when I've shot with 133 lenses, Alexa is de-squeezing it for you and is bringing it into the edit de-squeezed for you. You can still unde-squeeze it, but it's just, I guess it's in the metadata, it carries that de-squeeze factor across and the edit program knows what the camera is trying to tell it and it'll de-squeeze that sequence for you. And lastly, the thing I love about these lenses is how sharp they are. Now I've shot on a few different anamorphic lenses over the years. They are beautiful, some of them come with their quirks and some things to take into account. Some lenses I've used in the past, trying to use the lens below f4 would be probably advised against. You can do it, but it will be a softer look all round. So, some of the lenses in the past, it's advised that you kind of keep above f4 just to keep the lenses sharp. Other things are obviously anamorphic lenses. The best and most detailed part of that lens in any lens is the center, but there's a lot bigger fall off in some lenses where it's the sides is basically unusable, and you have to change the way you think about framing because rule of thirds doesn't always work with certain lenses just because of where the lens is best used, which is that center part of the lens. So with these lenses I've found that they're actually quite sharp across the entire scope of the lens, so even when I've been short framing people, it's still been looking good. And also at the lowest f-stop I'm still finding that it's very sharp. Now that could be combined with the Komodo, but these lenses just feel like a large part of the lens is usable. And that's really nice. It's nice to know that I can work below an f-stop. I'm not having to, change how I might work just to kind of make the lens work a bit better. Now obviously, those lenses that I've used in the past, those anamorphic lenses, even with those quirks have been great lenses. It's just what I've found personally when I've, across the lenses I've used is anamorphic lenses, and especially older ones, tend to come with more quirks than a spherical lens. So now let's talk about a couple of the cons of buying these lenses. The first being that some of them do vignette. I would say 5% crop is going to eliminate that vignette entirely, but it's worth noting that some of the lenses do have a slight vignette around the outside. A way that this affects things, and it might not affect you, but I quite often use screw-on filters. Now if you use a screw-on filter on the end of this lens, it's going to make the vignette a lot worse. A way around this, and something I haven't been able to test because I haven't got one big enough, is if you've got the biggest version of that screw-on filter, let's say you're using an 82 and the lens is 67, then if you used a step-up ring, you may eliminate the vignette because the filter will be bigger than the end of the lens. A matte box would eliminate this entirely because you would put slide-in filters that are way bigger than the end of the lens. But it's just worth noting that some of these lenses, and some are worse than others, probably the 24 is one of the worst because it's the widest, but it's worth noting that screw-on filters you may see a bit of a vignette. Another con, and this is only a con if you have a full-frame camera, is that these lenses are APC, so they're not going to cover a full frame sensor. So they make the E-mount version of these, some of the Sonys are full frame, they're not going to be able to utilize that full sensor with these lenses. That's probably why these lenses are a lot cheaper. If you look at the new full frame lenses that Sirui just brought out, I think they're going to be closer to like $1,000, $1,500. So one of the things that keeps the cost down is their APC, but if you have a full frame camera and you want to utilize that full frame, then maybe other lenses are a better option for you. Another thing is these lenses aren't always available in every mount. If you're a Canon EF, they don't do an EF version, that's a very popular mount. They do quite a lot of variations, but it seems to be more focused on lenses that are closer to the sensor. I think they do the Sony E mount, they do the RF mount, I think they do a micro four 4/3 mount. But yeah, no EF mount. These are only going to work on certain cameras. So depending on what camera you have, maybe these lenses aren't for you. Now the last and final thing I saved for the last because flares. I love flares. Part of what you love about anamorphic lenses is the flares. Certain anamorphic lenses flare one way, certain flare another. Now these give you blue flares. They can have really nice flares. They can have not so nice flares. I've noticed that when you're like filming towards a window, you'll get like a layer of flares. It's not one flare, it's a number of flares. Part and parcel, and why we use anamorphic is for a lot of these quirks that we get, like lens flares and, you know, the shape of the bokeh. From my experience, different people like different things. I can live with these flares, perfectly happy. I can do what I will do what I can to reduce certain ones. If I'm not so keen on them, I'll use flags. I'll try and eliminate them. A matte box. There are flares that come into these lenses that look really nice that I don't want to reduce, that I'll happily have more of. So yeah, flares. I'm going to put some examples in here so you can see. You're probably going to love it, you're going to hate it. I'm finding that if I need to, I can reduce the flare, and it's never really been a problem when I've been filming that I've been like, oh no, that's terrible, what can we do? That kind of sums these lenses up and what I've found. I personally, want my opinion, I love them. You know, they've got a lot to love about them. They come with some quirks. How they kind of shape the image, like the anamorphic look where you've got, you know, your central focus and it almost feels like the lens around all the images just bending around it, the bokeh shape. Every time I put them on the camera, they're a pleasure to use, and I've been getting some great results, and the people on shoot have been loving them as well. So, you know, if you haven't tested these lenses, you haven't seen them, maybe you can rent one or borrow one. But yeah, really, really, really good lenses. If you love anamorphic and you're looking for something budget, there isn't really anything out there that's as budget as this. I've been loving the results. I love these lenses. And do you know what's kind of crazy is it was probably only 10 years ago that, you know, I could have only dreamed of having an anamorphic lens set, and they cost so much money. And there was obviously options, you know, you could modify the Helios lens and stuff, and I've had one of those. But to get something that's just anamorphic that you could, you know, just take on shoot with you. We've always rented them in the past, and you can genuinely get quite good deals on anamorphic lenses, especially if you're renting a package. To have a camera and lens set, I can shoot 6K anamorphic with these lenses, which, you know, when I've shot anamorphic in the past, you're usually sacrificing resolution to use anamorphic. So with the Alexa, we did a project called Legs, and I think that filmed in 2K to take into account the 133D squeeze, and that's fine, you know. Alexa is beautiful and the film still looks amazing, but I would have loved that resolution, and to be able to shoot 6K resolution now and anamorphic, it's just really, really nice. I'm getting some really nice results. Check them out if you haven't checked them out, and I hope you enjoyed the footage. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got my Christmas jumper on today. Stranger Things Christmas jumper. I'll have a new Christmas jumper next week. You get these cool jumpers and you can only wear them once a year. So, well, not once a year, but one time of year. So I've been fully getting my use out of this recently. I think I've had it on a couple of shoots. Merry Christmas, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you again next week.